Met quorum. And so we are going to get started. Welcome, everyone, to Neighborhood Services Committee and Education Committee. And we have met quorum with Councilmember Esparza, Councilmember Jimenez, and myself.
No, Foley.
Foley, I'm so sorry. I was reading the agenda. I apologize. I apologize, ma'am.
I'll go and Maya can come. That's okay.
Right? Okay, so first is the review of the work plan, and we have San Jose Learns update as part of that review of work plan.
Yeah, and the plan is to defer that
Oh, I see. To
to the December 12th NSC.
got it, thank you. Do I need a motion
Yes,
for
we
that?
do. So moved.
Wonderful. All right, so that moves us on to, there's nothing on, oh, of course. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that moves forward. There isn't anything on consent, and now we're moving on to reports to the committee. We're going to begin with Animal Care and Services Annual Report.
Thank you, Chair Arenas and Councilmembers Foley and Jimenez. My name is Matt Cano, Public Works Director, and with me today, Jay Tirado, our Interim Deputy Director over Animal Care and Services, and Lawrence Gomez. It was Interim Shelter Manager, but just yesterday, he was appointed Shelter Manager. We took off the interim title, so we had to edit the presentation. So the animal care, this is an annual report we provide to this committee to review how we're doing statistically and also our impact to the community from our animal care and services program. The animal center is located, as you likely know, on Monterey Road. From a volume standpoint, our team interacts with and impacts the lives of over 18,000 animals per year. It saves the lives of over 93% of the dogs and cats that come into our shelter, and focuses not just on the physical shelter, but also on providing field services to San Jose and neighboring cities, and also medical services for those animals that are under our care. And really proud of the work our team does on an annual basis. We did receive a lot of media attention this summer over cage cleanliness. It is as everybody knows in the city, we don't have a lot of money in the city to provide services, and every service every department provides is strapped with resources. And an area at the Animal Care Center where we knew we needed to do a little bit better was on keeping every cage clean at least once a day. Every animal in our care has always been well taken care of from a medical standpoint and a quality of life standpoint. And we recognized during the budget process that if we could have a little bit more money for cage cleaning, it would make everyone's lives a little better. Thank you all for approving that money in this last budget process. Over $700,000 went to supplement our services at the center. On July 1st, we implemented those additional resources and have been cleaning every cage every day at least once, with a few minor exceptions since that time. And just really appreciate your support in that last budget process, so I can't thank you enough for that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jay Tirado for the rest of the presentation.
Good afternoon. Again, Jay Tirado, Interim Deputy Director for Animal Services. I'm going to discuss our field services unit, and again, they respond to, or they complete over 22,000 calls for service. Our dispatch gets a lot of calls coming in, and on the screen is our most common call types: stray dogs and cats, deceased animals, humane investigations, barking, and standards of care, and also dangerous dogs. Also, our unit is tasked with investigating animal cruelty, and so our team works with the district attorney's office to file criminal complaints and hopefully for prosecution. Oh, and the sea lion there was from last year. It was around First and Brokaw. It was kind of a unique situation for us, and so I made sure I took a picture, and we're able to contain it, and the Marine Mammal Center helped us out with transporting the animal, and it was eventually released back to the sea. So this is just an example.
Can I interrupt? That is very interesting. So this was just a pet that somebody had? And
No, we think it came over from the river, Guadalupe River area, from Alviso maybe. We weren't able to track how he got there, but that was the only logical area, but it was unique to see it around industrial buildings. And so it took a while for the Marine Mammal Center to arrive because they were coming from a faraway location, and it was a weekend, so it was busy. So there were 3 of us on scene, and we were able to make sure it doesn't go into a street. So
Wow, neat. You don't hear that every day.
no, and I actually we had another one this year, so hopefully it's not a common thing. So and so this is just a breakdown of our calls that we respond to, and priority 1 calls are mostly the emergencies. From injured animals to sick animals and to aggressive dogs. And then it just breaks down to other calls like non-emergency calls. And priority 2, we consider urgent calls. And then priority 3 are like patrols. Just a picture of our field services truck. The picture on the right actually is from Paradise area when we sent officers for about a week to help out with recovery during last year's fires. And so one of my favorite pictures because they were able to find beauty in all the destruction. So, and with that, I'll hand it over to Lawrence Gomez.
Good afternoon. I'm Lawrence Gomez, recently appointed to shelter manager. So I'm presenting our shelter services. We take in about a little over 18,000 animals annually, and you can see the breakdown. We take in more cats overall of all the animals that we take in annually. We run an average daily population in our peak of our summer months of about 600 animals. And then in our winter months, we'll drop down to a daily average of about 200. And that's, largely in part to our kitten season, so weather really impacts our intake as overall with the kittens. And this is an overview of our intake. And as you can see through the years, it's stayed fairly steady. Through 16, 17, we had a little bit of an increase with our cats and kittens. And then we dropped down a little bit in 17, 18. And then through 18, 19, we're somewhat about the same. We're looking at ways of reducing our intake by providing more resources to our residents and to our dogs and cats. And then this is a graph that shows our annual live release rate, and this measures dogs and cats. And you can see in 14-15 we had 86%, which that number is really good for industry standards. And over through 16-17 we were in our 92%. This year we achieved 93%. And again, that is really a great number to have, and this is all in part to all of our life-saving programs that we have in place and a really interactive community with our shelter. So we're grateful for that. And for our medical, admin, fundraising, marketing, and volunteer programs, we run 2 medical clinics in our shelter. We have a public clinic, which serves the needs of our community and offers low-cost spay and neuter at a low cost. And then we have an internal medical clinic that serves the needs of our shelter pets. So they will do various medical procedures, dentals, amputations, as well as spay and neuter for the animals going up for adoption. We do about approximately 10,000 spay and neuter surgeries per year. And for our licensing, we process about 65,000 licenses, and that equals about $1.6 million in revenue a year. 40% cost recovery overall, 3.6 million revenue towards our $8 million budget. We also have a gift trust called our Guardian Angel program, and we use the funds in this program to address the additional medical needs that are not within our budget and help find life-saving outcomes for those animals that come to us with a little bit more medical needs than we can take on. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Lawrence, and congratulations on becoming the shelter manager, and as you as well, Jay,
Thank you.
for becoming deputy director. I'm going to turn to my colleagues to see if they have any questions. Oh, okay. No questions. You're doing all a wonderful job. And I just wanted to comment on one thing in terms of the sea lions. When you called in the Marine Agency or
Correct. The Marine Mammal Center.
Marine Mammals Center, did they, now that you have two on record in terms of sea lions, I don't
Correct.
know if they were in the same area, but if they were in the same area, if we continue to see that trend, maybe it's something that we should pull them into? Is there a concern if we continue to see more of those sea lions?
It's definitely something that we want to look at, because it's not something that we're expecting every single year, and that's not something that we want. I mean, because the first one that I encountered was, I think it was over 200 pounds, maybe more than that, and so it's definitely not something that we can just, handle and load in our trucks. So I didn't load the picture, but I think there were about 10 people total that was able to contain the animals. So it is worth something that we want to look into and make sure that it doesn't happen every year. And it's something that I can contact them to see if there's something that we need to be aware of, and
Yeah.
maybe do some mitigation plans to ensure that they don't come onto San Jose.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if it's because, whatever, if it's climate change or as the season's getting colder and it starts raining, I don't know if that's going to contribute to it. I don't know what the reasons are, but I just find that very strange.
Yeah,
And so-
when I was dealing with them, they said that it could be a medical condition that kind of redirects them to the wrong direction. But again, I thought it was just a one-off thing. So having two, the second one in September, almost a year to the day. So it's definitely something that we don't want to repeat next year.
Okay, well, thank you so much. If you can keep an eye on that, I'm sure you will. That's something that's a little outside of what we
Yes,
normally do.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. The last question I was going to ask, I know that you do a lot of these adoption clinics or activities. Do you have any in Eastridge?
We do not, but that is the rescue group that is there. They are partnered with our shelter, and the kittens that are there are from the San Jose Animal Care Center.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And I noticed that the cats are twice as much as the dogs. Is there any, low or reduced fee for spading cats?
Yeah, so our low-cost fees are reduced for cats over dogs.
Over
So,
dogs?
Yeah,
So
for,
folks could easily, even if they don't own the cat, they could easily capture it, bring it to the shelter?
if they don't own the cat and they're not seeking spay neuter as an owner, we do take the animal in as a stray and provide
Oh, you do
spay
take
neuter
it,
services
okay.
for that
So you can't release it
animal.
once again?
Right.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the work that you do to keep our streets clean and our
Thank you.
pets
Thank you.
safe. Thank you so much, and congratulations once again.
Thank you very much.
All
Thank you.
right. Do I have a motion? Yeah, of course.
Wanted to get you before you stood up. So I was just looking at the little section or the section that says donations and revenues, and it seems, which is something I hadn't thought about until I read this a little closer, it says these donations are used primarily, and there's not many of them, it seems, much of the revenue coming from donations, revenues, but primarily provide extra medical care for homeless animals at the facility. And so, for example, if there's obviously Monterey Road, the facility's not right on Monterey Road, actually, and so we certainly have some challenges with people, unfortunately, living on the street in that area. Can you take me through how it plays out when someone that has, is homeless and has a dog comes in? I mean, what is the process by which they get service?
So if they're seeking services from our agency, we look at what resources we have available to provide them so that the animal can stay with their owner.
And I do want to add that we do provide a clinic free for folks that have challenges once a month, and we do advertise that, and they can just come in and.
But a clinic for the animal, right? They
Yes,
have
for
an animal
the,
there.
yeah, for the animals, sorry. And so they are able to bring their animals once a month and get care.
Okay.
But with no charge.
Okay, I think that's great. What I'm curious about is how often do you guys keep track of the number of homeless individuals that go in and take their animals? Do you have a sense as to how often that occurs?
We don't. I mean, as an agency, our overall goal is to obviously help animals. And so we will apply whatever resources we can to help out an animal, but it's not something that we track because it's just something that we do.
Yeah, and the reason I ask is just if it is in fact the case that, say, for example, you see a number of individuals that are homeless are going there, I just wonder if it's not a place that I would think about, but now that we're talking about this, that if it's a place where there can be some resources for folks that are living on the street, whether it be housing, information, or things of that nature. I wonder if you all provide any of that, given that they actually go there.
We do provide them with information and literature that can help them with, that provides information connected to the housing department, and also whatever other resources that they need. So we do have that. We do work with the housing department too, and we get literature and information from them, and so when we get a chance, we do hand those out.
Okay, I think that's wonderful. And the reason that comes to mind for me is I just think that we need to think about the way the city touches each of these individuals
Yes.
that we're trying to help, and figure out how we can make that connection sort of, bear some fruit in some respect. So,
course.
thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. Did we vote already? All in favor? Those opposed? Okay, so that moves on. So we're going to here activate San Jose, the department's strategic plan, as this is an item that's going to be cross-referenced for council, and I believe, Councilmember Jimenez, you need to leave to go to a VTA board meeting at 3:40. So we will hear that one first, since that one needs a vote.
Flip the slide. There. All right, caught us by surprise with that one. Thankfully, we were all here.
Make sure you're awake.
Okay, pull up the. You want to hand it down?
Thank you.
So right now, Carolina's going to hand you the basic layout. It'll look better when it's finished. This is obviously just stapled, but you'll get a sense of the images and the layout, and what you'll see is it's really easy to read. So now that we got the slide up, I'll introduce myself. I'm John Cicerelli, Director of Parks, Recreation, Neighborhood Services. With me are Nicole Burnham, our Deputy Director for Capital Programs, and Carolina Camarena, our Public Information Manager. And we are here, I believe, for the third time to talk to you about Activate SJ, and we're hoping the last time. We do want to move this forward to council. I will make one request if I can. I believe in the report, we asked for December 3rd, and if it's all right with you, we would prefer December the 10th. We were looking at the December 3rd agenda in council, and it's a little bumpy, so the next week looks a little better. So if that's all right with the committee, we'd prefer the 10th. So let me begin with what Activate SJ is. So as many of you know, we have over 200 parks, 61 miles of trails, 50 community centers. We have a variety of services across the city that range from the traditional parks and recreation, right, grass and fun things to do, recreational programs, sports. We also have neighborhood services, which is a growing part of our operation, and those are preschool programs and after-school programs and senior nutrition programs and therapeutics to help those that are otherwise abled. We have programs to help our youth to get away from gangs or get out of gangs or reintegrate into society. So we touch so many different things in this city in so many different ways. And this process began actually as an update to the Green Print. And the Green Print was a document that began back in the early 2000s when Measure P, the bond, was passed to build more parks, more community centers, things like that. And so it was a very capital-oriented document. What are we going to build with all this money that we got from the bond? And in 2009, the last update of the Green Print, it remained that kind of a document. It was driven by what are we going to build with this money. We went out to update the Green Print, and really what we heard from the community wasn't so much build so much more stuff, it was take care of what you have. And to put it in context, this started about 2 or 3 years ago, so we're still coming out of that recessionary period. You know, there are a lot of things got cut, for example, maintenance, so parks didn't look as good. We'd cut a lot of programs, we'd really reduced the number of community centers we were operating as a city and as a department. And so really what we heard from the community was invest more in what you have. And so when we heard that voice, what it told us was, you know, we have to have an operating vision. We have to have an operating strategic plan that reflects what we're hearing. And so Nicole and Carolina are going to go through a variety of things with you, but just to set it up, I think this pyramid helps explain really what we heard from the community. And it boiled down to these 5 guiding principles for us. And at the base of that, we heard stewardship, right? Take care of what you have. But we also heard nature. We want more access to nature, more experiences with nature. And those are really the bottom of the pyramid, the foundation of what we do. And then that leads to how do we make sure that folks all over the city have access to these things, that they're able to, whether it's by neighborhood or by ability, that they're able to enjoy what we are able to provide for the city and for our residents. And in that, create an identity in our park system as being high quality and easily accessible. And we feel if we do all 4 of those things right, what it really culminates in at the top of the pyramid is this great public life experience for our residents, that they feel well served, they feel the investments are taken care of, and they feel that they have access to that. Thanks. So the question then is, what happens to the Green Print? And so the Green Print didn't go away. We just took a turn. And so the Green Print still exists. And what we envision the Green Print now through the lens of Activate SJ, which is this is a document about how we do business as a city. This is a document that reflects what we heard from our community about how they want us to do business as a city. And so the Green Print, as we're going forward, we don't have a big bond to try to build out anything right now. And so we still have our capital improvement program every year that we'll talk to you about. In fact, we'll talk to you about that later today. And that's an annual process, and some of you are familiar. We go through that with each of you. Excuse me, I'm fighting a bit of a cold. We go through that with each of you each year to understand your priorities in your community and make a plan for the next year in terms of building things or fixing things. So those will still exist. They'll probably take more of a regional model, and we'll look at things, for example, North San Jose, as that starts to develop. We'll look at that more intentionally, just as North San Jose, versus trying to have some big plan that we're trying to force it into. And Activate becomes the lens through which we view everything else, those 5 guiding principles. And so to get a sense of how much outreach we did, Carolina's going to talk to you about all the various things and people and ways in which we spoke with people and heard from our community.
Thank you, John. Carolina Camarena, Public Information Manager for the department. So the process in our community outreach for developing Activate SJ involved significant public and staff input between 2016 and 2019. And that included things like community events, intercept surveys, trilingual surveys, an interactive mapping tool. So the current slide gives you an overview. It also provides the depth of the community outreach that helped guide the development of Activate SJ. And the feedback from the community really provided the foundation. We like to say this is a community-inspired plan, but they've provided the foundation for the direction and the guiding principles. So we see the plan as informed and inspired by the community and refined by our parks professionals. We did a lot of internal outreach as well, spanning that same time period. So we gave, staff gave input through numerous meetings and surveys. We also involved our partner city departments through presentations and a technical advisory group. And then we implemented a department-wide survey to engage both our full and part-time staff. It was important to us that we engaged all of our staff. And our internal outreach really helped refine and confirm the feedback that the community provided. Lastly, was our 30-day public review and survey results. So this summer, we engaged both the community and our internal staff through a 30-day public review and comment period. We had over 450 respondents. And on this slide, you can see that by far, most of the public is in agreement with the 5 guiding principles. So through the process, we heard loudly and clearly that the thing that mattered the most to the public and our community is that San Joseans want clean, safe parks. So we've emerged through this multi-year outreach process with clarity on our vision and mission, and we used our findings to develop and frame the plan's guiding principles and future aspirations and goals. And that leads us to the next slide.
Thank you, Carolina. As John indicated, I'm Nicole Burnham, Deputy Director of Capital Programs for the department. So I'll walk you through some of the details of the plans, give you the overview of what it looks like, what the document in front of you looks like and includes. So there is a new vision and a new mission for the department that we are going to talk about momentarily. And then for each of the guiding principles that John and Carolina mentioned in their presentation, we have goals and objectives presented in the plan, and they will work their way into performance measures that become work plans for our work teams. So what guides us? Our vision, and this was developed as a result both of the public outreach and communication, but also through a deep dive into staff, right? And getting the pulse of where they are and how they see us performing in the community and the services that we provide. So the vision of the department will be healthy communities that inspire belonging, with a mission of connecting people through parks, recreation, and neighborhood services for an active San Jose. Within the context of that, I'm just going to walk you through the 5 guiding principles and talk a little bit about what each of them means to us and what the outcome, what does success look like, right? As we implement this plan, how are we going to guide ourselves and measure what we're doing? So stewardship, as John mentioned and Carolina both, this was very fundamental to everything we heard. Community said loudly and early, stop building stuff, take care of it. Right, and we can't stop building stuff. That's not part of the plan, but we do recognize that we need to dig deep and really focus on the services we offer and provide and the maintenance that we do of our facilities. So the statements that are up on the screen are the aspirations around which we built benchmarking. So we'll focus efforts on maintaining and improving existing parks, recreation facilities, and trails. We'll innovate continuously to improve all aspects of our work. We'll welcome and engage members of the community to partner with us in caring for our spaces, our resources, and our programs. We'll diversify our funding for sustainable system and build, equip, and recognize a workforce of experts and leaders who take pride in their service to the community. So success in this outcome really looks like, to really succinctly clarify it, having a series of robust partners who are helping us achieve our mission, right, of healthy communities and connecting people, right? Because we recognize we can't continue to do all of it by ourselves. We need our private partners and we need our volunteers. It looks like shored up staffing, right, to meet the needs of the community, to get our park condition scores up, to have a good, robust trail maintenance team, and a highly engaged staff that's well-trained. So that's sort of what success looks like for us there. Nature, protect, preserve, and promote outdoor spaces for all people. So I'm not going to read you all the details on the slide. These are all in the document, but again, these are the aspirations that we have around connecting people to nature, connecting our community to nature. Success for us here really looks like, having good, solid, nature-based programming and open spaces that foster access and understanding in the community on why those spaces are so important. Why is it so important for us to all have access to nature? And supporting the city's vision for a robust response to climate change. We recognize that parks play a critical role in that, and for us, that's part of our nature aspiration. Equity and access, certainly another one that we heard loudly and clearly, and we hear more about it every day these days. So, and we embrace people of all ages, cultures, and abilities. And success here looks like having programs and services that really truly reduce social isolation for all of our neighborhoods, right? Having all of our residents be within a 10-minute walk of a park. And having engaged neighborhoods that really have a voice in their community and feel like they are part of the community and part of our decision-making process. So those are really, our outcomes are really focused around achieving those goals. Identity, and you saw it in Carolina's item as she talked about the survey results. This was the one that I think the community struggled with the most to come to consensus on. We heard some people say, we want to maintain the identity of our local neighborhood. That's really important to us. And we heard other people say, we want the city to have, a major identity and iconic, and be iconic, right? And what does that mean? So we set intentions around celebrating our diversity. We really were working hard on this to balance both of those needs, both of those things that we heard from the community. We think there's space, that the city's big enough for both of those. So celebrating our diversity, culture, and history, advancing our reputation as one of the nation's healthiest cities. We recognize we've got the World Health Organization age-friendly designation. That's really, PRNS is the driver of that program across the city, and we want to preserve that and protect it and enhance it and grow it. So it's not just about age-friendly, but it's about everyone in the community. And public life, really, as John said, is the pinnacle, right? We think if we do all of these other things, we will have connected and diverse neighborhoods that will strengthen pride and unity. We'll have spaces and places where people feel welcome and can engage with each other and members of the community who look, talk, and are different than them, right? Those are the spaces that we want. We want that ability to have connection among people in our parks and recreation facilities. So with that, we will open it up to questions. Our recommendation is to accept our strategic plan and cross-reference it to council. As John mentioned, we're asking for December 10th instead of December 3rd. With that, I will close.
Great, and I ask my colleagues, whoever does the motion can include the December 10th, if they so choose. Questions?
I will move the recommendation and move the council date to December 10th.
Second.
Okay, so it looks like no one else has questions. I do have, you do?
Oh, just, I don't know if there's a card.
Oh, I'm so sorry, yes, thank you. Larry Ames, yes, I'm going to move on to public comment. And if anybody else would like to make a 2-minute public comment, please fill out a yellow card or just come up to the mic and then fill it out afterwards. Hi, Larry.
Hello. Yeah, it's been a long and complex process, and glad it's over. It's a very nice report, and I'm supporting it. It's not perfect, though, and I have a few comments on it. One of the things is how it deals with the unhoused. The program says it acknowledges it. I mean, you should say it's a problem, and you should deal with it, but hopefully say it's temporary rather than accepting it. So I want to try to move on beyond that. I mean, like right now, we've basically lost use of Bascom Community Center because it's being used for homeless at night, and so the daycare center in the program in the morning is being canceled because they can't move in time. So it's impacting it. So acknowledge it, but make it work to solve it. I know it's more beyond your problem, but it's something to deal with. Climate change. I'm glad there's mentions of trees in here. It's very important for the public to have trees to cool down and shade the playgrounds and so forth. I'm also worried about the Green Stormwater Initiative. It's to treat runoff from the streets, and some of the city parks are planned to be used for treating the water. They're planning to take, the phase 1 plan is to take 4 acres out of Kelly Park, where that's half the disc golf area, just to become settlement ponds for these things. And so it's fine to take unused land, make settlement ponds, put trails around it, and give it to the city parks as an additional park, but when you take away city parks for that, it's a problem. Parks are important, so for everybody, especially for the people living in affordable housing and the high-density housing. So I ask you not to give away park fees. I guess that's another item on the agenda, so I'll speak again on that. But these parks are the backyards for the people who live here in these new apartments. So please make sure there are enough of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, so I'm going to continue with my comment. It looks like nobody else has questions. So I also, thank you, Larry, for bringing up the unhoused issue. As I also was thinking about how the stewardship principle is connected to some of the work that's being done now with the 5-year community plan with housing. And we all know that our libraries and our community centers and our parks are all impacted. And I think you all had done some level of assessment in recognizing that staff time, that there is some impact to staff time that consumes or takes away from other activities. And so I was wondering, how are you leveraging? I know that you want to diversify your funding to make sure that you have longevity here. And I think there's a really great opportunity with a 5-year community plan. What have you, first of all, I guess, have you considered that as another source to address the unhoused and how that impacts our parks?
Do you mean using the countywide 5-year community plan as a potential funding resource to help with this? Is that what you're asking?
Either the 5-year county plan guides our own internal 5-year community plan as well.
Oh, I see.
So there's 2 5-year plans, one that the county does,
Right.
and we feed into it and guides us, and then the other one is the one we have internally that's, we I think, are kicking off the outreach at this month or next month.
Mm-hmm.
So there's potential possibilities to connect those funding sources, right? Because
Agreed.
that is a need, and we recognize that as a need.
We do, and we have been looking for those opportunities, and we have yet to come up with sort of a system-wide way to do that. But as an example, actually based on a conversation the city council had around, remember when we came back around 7 trees and the safe parking, and ultimately the decision was move it out of there. But it also was, that conversation recognized the impact to the surrounding neighborhood. And so the direction from council was, look, if we're gonna put in any kind of homeless services in a neighborhood, we're gonna look at the neighborhood holistically. And so that's what we've done at both Bascom and Roosevelt Community Centers, where there are 2 overnight warming locations operating right now. And so as an example, one of the things we did at Roosevelt is we set aside money through that process that was part of the funding for housing individuals at the community center to improve the conditions in the park itself, because the park that surrounds Roosevelt, so Bascom doesn't have a park around it. Bascom just sits alone as a community center. Roosevelt, though, has a quite large park in it, and it has about 20-plus individuals living in the park. And so part of the plan going in there was, okay, we're gonna work with those folks, move them out of the park, and then we're gonna use money to completely refurbish the park itself, so that we're delivering something at a higher standard for that neighborhood because they are being impacted by the overnight warming location being there. So that's something that's gonna happen over the next week or 2. And so it'll be trimming out a lot of the brush in the areas in which homeless folks might try to hide behind, mulching up, doing power spraying. So all those extra services that we normally wouldn't be able to afford to do are going to be done because of the impact of having an overnight warming location. So in specific instances, yes, we're finding ways to help, but we don't have a system-wide plan yet.
Is there an opportunity to integrate that into this plan, since this is a 20-year plan?
There is, one of the ways, and you're gonna hear a lot about this going forward over the next few months, because through our Beautify SJ program, where we're trying to consolidate environmental services, Parks and Rec, DOT, and housing all together, looking at primarily the issue of dumping and litter around the city. And so bringing all that together and having extra resources, and that is more of a system-wide look at how we clean up the city. It's not specifically parks or community center focused, it's the broad community. But that's a separate effort that we will be having a much more in-depth conversation with you about in the coming months, leading into the budget process. We know that's gonna be a subject of significant interest to many of you, so we're already in the process of preparing for that, and so there'll be more to come about what that looks like or what we think it should look like. So there are those other pieces going on.
And those are efforts that we're making because we're bringing something to the community, like we're opening up a warming center, or we are bringing a safe parking to that area. But what I'm talking about is just everyday wear and tear. And we know that our unhoused community are going to our libraries on an everyday basis. They're going to our parks on an everyday basis. And some of our community centers, I know that at Welch, there were some issues, even though it's just, newly reopened. There's some issues there with folks. And cleaning up the place is part of what we need to do to make sure that it's a welcoming place for our community. And so I'm just talking about some of that everyday maintenance and those impacts that we have, that the unhoused community has.
Yeah, there are definitely impacts, not just the community centers, but to the parks as well.
Parks, all of
on the
our
trails,
facilities.
It's a big issue.
Right.
So we are looking, again, towards this next budget process. We'll have some proposals around things like trails and some of the park issues. In the situation where we have overnight warming locations, we have set aside money for the extra wear and tear that may come with having that every single night for 6 months. So again, in those specific instances, we've been able to set aside money to prepare for it, but system-wide, we're not there yet.
Okay. So my recommendation would be for you to take a look at what housing is doing with their 5-year community plan to see how you can have maybe some additional funding sources from there. I know that you already have CDBG money coming through PRNS. I recognize that as part of Beautify San Jose. I just don't know that we've explored everything. And I think this is the time to do it because this is the time where housing in that 5-year plan will shape what the needs are for San Jose. And this could be part of one of those needs. So I just recommend for you to take a look at that as another option. And those are my questions. Anyone else? Okay. So, okay.
Just want to publicly thank you for all the work that you've done. I know it's, I don't know if when I was on the Parks Commission, I think in sometime in 2016, I think some of these discussions, I think we're about to start kicking off and stuff. So I know it's been a long time coming. Very much looking forward to the final report and to the much more broad, what I assume is going to be a broader discussion at the full city council. But thank you for all the work.
Thank you. And before we have a vote, I'm going to call Gordon to talk about the park strategic plan. And then Shawnee, you're next.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, thank you for the report. I'd just like to highlight San Jose's lack of investment in parks over the years. It's not something that you obviously need to take any kind of credit of, but if we could put further investment in parks like New York, Chicago, or Seattle, you'll actually find that the acreage per resident is nearly triple that of San Jose. And since it's on a per capita basis, I think it's something to think about, especially as parks that are walkable within both for younger generations and seniors has actually a pretty big mental health impact. I also hope that part of that can be done through the general planning 4-year update, and hopefully we can try and zone for more parks around new high-density mixed-use areas and increased public transit, primarily rail lines. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. Shawnee?
I agree with him. Thank you. I participated in a very long process that is now ending, and I really appreciate the hard work that was put into this plan and strategic plan. It had a lot of iterations and a lot of community input, and even almost to the last minute, a lot of the comments that we've provided were incorporated into the plan. So mostly, I think it came up with a decent strategic plan, given the lack of resources. that the department is experiencing on an ongoing basis. So one of the things I think would be good is to increase the resources available to parks. I only have one comment, and that's because words do matter. And so this is just one little criticism, but under nature, it says we protect, preserve, and promote outdoor spaces for all people. And I think when people ask for nature, and this was the highest ranking request from the public, they're looking at biological things. They want to see the birds, they want to hear the trees, they want to hear the water running, they want shade, they want nature, not outdoor spaces, because we have a big outdoor space right here in City Hall that has no nature in it. So, you know, when you think about nature, what do you envision? That's kind of what I want to see here. And I know the intent is actually nature, but the words do matter. And I just picked this beautiful leaf. Just look at it. The wind is blowing out there. It's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Shawnee. Thank you for bringing in, literally bringing in nature into this conversation. And I don't know what page that is, but I would also consider reviewing that before it moves forward. I think that's a really good point that Shawnee made. Okay, so motion on the floor?
We have a motion.
Do we, no, we don't have a motion, please.
Yeah, I made a motion.
You made a motion? Okay, who seconded?
Sergio, I thought.
I think so.
Oh, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, so that moves forward. Thank you so much for all your hard work, and this looks really beautiful. Okay, so now we are moving towards the update on Neighborhood Center Partner Program.
Do you want to go back to two?
The college,
Oh,
because I think we took activate SJ. Because of the vote.
oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, we can go back on update on college and career readiness. And I know it's a big crowd of folks who are presenting, and I love it. I love to see the folks who are actually doing, performing some of the work that we get to benefit from. I would just ask you to be really concise, because some of my colleagues, or at least Councilmember Perales needs to leave at 3:45. Wait, no. Oh, my goodness, I've got everybody's last name. It's a cough syrup, you guys.
Stop drinking.
Thank you and welcome.
My name is Vidya Kinambi, and today we are here to speak to our collective work in the area of college and career readiness, one of the main focus areas of the city's education and digital literacy strategy. The city's approach utilizes small-scale pilots and gradual expansion to ensure that programs are fully meeting the needs of the community, and that city staff are able to develop and deliver quality programming at scale. This update focuses on 6 areas of implementation: SJ Engage, SJ Aspires, Career Online High School, Working Scholars, San Jose Works, and SJPL Works.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Meg Malloy, and I'm a librarian at Teen HQ, and I'm part of the team supporting the SJ Engage initiative. This year, we expanded our approach by facilitating SJ Engage learning circles at each library branch, and we were able to turn learning into action by providing resources and funding for our Teens Reach groups to create community-based social action projects within their libraries. Thus far, we have facilitated SJ Engage learning circles at nearly half of our branch libraries and have measured a 75% increase in knowledge after participation. We have also funded 6 Teens Reach social action projects that range from letter writing and button-making campaigns to a documentary highlighting community diversity, and look forward to inspiring more teen-led change in the future. Local team participants have said that the program has provided many opportunities and incentives to engage further with community issues and organizations they care about.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Adrian McBride. I'm a literacy program specialist with the San Jose Public Library. San Jose Aspires recently concluded its first pilot cohort We ended up with 59 registered users who in turn earned over $18,000 in financial reward towards post-secondary education. I guess the next slide video. Perfect. And then our goal for 2020 is we want to reach up to 300 users by December 2020 through leveraging more partnerships with high schools as well as nonprofit organizations. And then this is Jesus. He's currently going to San Jose State University, and this is a testimonial about how he used his financial award for textbooks.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Pam Cornelissen, manager of the Partners in Reading program and Career Online High School. The library launched Career Online High School in February of 2016. The program offers San Jose adults the opportunity to complete their high school education and gain career readiness through an accredited and supportive diploma program available online at any time, any place that suits their busy lives. A lot of our participants have 2 jobs and families, and being able to get their diploma online has really worked well. Steps toward earning a scholarship are noted on the slide on the left side, and along with outcomes on the right side. One update there is where we have 62 graduates. As of 2 days ago, we now have 68 graduates. Having a high school diploma and career certificate is a breakthrough toward a better paying job, new career, higher education, and new beginnings for San Jose adults and their families. Thank you. Adrian?
Sure. And then building off of that, another program I'm responsible for is Working Scholars. This is a pilot program that's created by a partnership between Study.com through their Working Scholars nonprofit arm, the California State Library, and the San Jose Public Library. This program will allow up to 7 graduates of the Career Online High School to earn their college degree through an online program. Currently for the program, we have 10 applicants, that may be 11, and of those 11 applicants, 7 will be selected to begin the program in January of 2020.
Good afternoon, council members. Monique Meltor, Division Manager for Work to Future. We oversee the San Jose Works program, where again, we've successfully placed 375 subsidized opportunities for youth. We've done this in industries where there's career pathways, advanced manufacturing, business, construction, healthcare, information, communication technology, and some construction. 141 of the youth were placed within the city and nonprofits this year. 93% of the youth successfully completed the subsidized internships, and 625 older youth placed in employer-paid job opportunities. That was our 4th year. We already started our 5th year. We're completing that up, and we're going to be starting our 6th year soon, so we're really excited. Our 5th year, again, 1,000 employment opportunities for youth. We do have a video that I would love to share with you. It's only 3 minutes long if you have a little bit of time. These opportunities for the kids, again, are from PRNS, the Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force, with 150 subsidized, and Work to Future 225 subsidized and 625 unsubsidized, for a total of 1,000 again this year. So we're really excited. And this video is a testimonial to the services that we provide. And the young lady you're going to see is Marissa Gonzalez, and she I'll give you her story, her end story, as soon as it's done, but it's a very nice video. So just a quick update on Marissa. She did complete the program with us twice, and she just signed papers for San Jose State. So we're really excited and proud of her, and couldn't ask any more of her. So we're just really thrilled that that worked out that way. And we have other students that have the same success stories, but we wanted to really show you Marissa's story. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Rosemary Van Laer, and I manage SJPL Works, which provides free career and business development resources. In fiscal year 2018-2019, 2,431 people attended 275 business and career programs. New goals for the 2019-2020 fiscal year include piloting networking programs for a variety of library customers, including those employed in the technology sector who work remotely and women seeking reentry into the workforce. During the past fiscal year, SJPL Works leveraged 28 partnerships in order to offer programs addressing a wide range of business and career development needs. Growing existing partnerships and cultivating new ones is also a new fiscal year goal. Thank you.
And this concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, we are happy to take this stuff.
Thank you. I'm going to look to my colleagues to see if they have any questions. No on this side? Okay. Okay, Councilmember Carrasco.
Yeah, thank you so much, by the way. Thank you for everything that you're doing. These programs really give adults and children really an opportunity either to course correct or just simply another opportunity at seeing the world in a whole different way. This young woman is a great example of that. Who knows if she would have ended up at San Jose State anyway? But definitely having had that exposure and the support around her made a difference in her life. And so I'm always, I'm just very happy that you showed us that video and that you're keeping track of the kind of work that you're doing and the kind of results that the programs are making. I think that it's really important to keep data like this because at some point we're going to be asked for that kind of data. And, you know, when I first got into this seat, we were told that this wasn't our business. Pavement is our business. You know, park maintenance is our business. Services like these are not necessarily our business. And I disagree. I think this is absolutely part of our business. These are our residents. And whenever we have an opportunity to impact people's lives, these are the individuals who are going to either contribute to our city and help us grow, or they're going to contribute to our city in a way that we're not going to be very proud. And we're going to have to intervene anyway, one way or the other. And so let's make sure that we invest in a way that is going to make our community very successful. So thank you so much for what you're doing. I just wanted to applaud you for what you're doing. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. I have just a comment to make, well, actually a question. So beginning with the Career Online High School, once they end, are any of these programs that, especially the one over 19 years of age, are any of these folks connected to the San Jose City jobs? Because I know one is there's a network of small businesses that you all connect them with, but I'm guessing that we include our jobs in there as well.
Yes, we do. The average age also in Career Online High School, I think it's anywhere from 25 to 45 people who want the second chance to earn the high school diploma, even if they have a GED or they already have a job. Especially if they want to go into government work, they will come to the Career Online High School program.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And then First, I want to say, Monique, that was a great video worth the 3 minutes and more. We got a chance to have 2 kiddos, Kareem and Adam, in our office, and so thank you for working with us on that. And I would encourage my colleagues in all of the council offices to host some of these students. Is there any plans to do this beyond summer, or is it because you don't want to conflict with schoolwork?
So we do offer fall cohorts as well as winter cohorts, depending on if we don't meet our goals at the end of the timeframe we've indicated, because other kids do want to participate later in the year. So we have been doing, for the last 2 years, a fall or winter cohort.
I would absolutely be interested in both of the fall and the winter cohorts. I thought it was exclusive to summer, so we thought that was just the end of it. We would love to continue to participate. And then for San Jose PL Works, I was wondering if I think this would be a great opportunity. Workforce development is always important, and I think this would be a good opportunity for us to connect with maybe some of the DV shelters and those service providers who support DV survivors, domestic violence survivors.
Okay,
I think-
thank you. Thank you. Well, we haven't, but we can look into that.
Wonderful. I think this is just, all of these programs just sound so wonderful, and I think they're an opportunity for all of us on council to be involved and to somehow support in one way or another. I know for San Jose Aspires, Overfelt was included. I didn't realize until the report that was happening over at Overfelt. I would love to be involved and to learn how to support the program. I think that you are all coming back to Overfelt once again, and Andrew Hill and James Lake and Yerba Buena. But I would love to support it. We have Welch Community Center, which is opening in that, has already been open in that area. And I would venture to say that it's also another location for you all to meet and to host workshops and events to the benefit of our community. If there aren't any comments, I just want to thank you all for the work that you are all doing, and thank you for being so concise. Thank you. Motion on the floor. There isn't any kind of motion.
Second.
Awesome. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? So this moves forward. Thank you so much, ladies. All right, so now we are moving on to update on the Neighborhood Center Partner Program, formerly known as the Community Center Reuse Program.
Great. Good afternoon. Neil Rufino, Deputy Director of Recreation and Neighborhood Services. I'm here with Andrea Flores-Shelton, Division Manager, and Pauline Keck, who is our Acting Recreation Supervisor over the new Neighborhood Center Partner Program. And as we are setting up the PowerPoint. All right, there we go. So this is an update. In April, we reported to NSC with a work plan that is framed by several priorities of stewardship, accountability, equity, and sustainability. The 5 goals that are listed here: 1, maintain safe, quality facilities for neighborhood services; 2, ensure timely, transparent processes for operator selection; 3, establish consistent enforcement, accountability standards and metrics; 4, improve community access and knowledge of services; and 5, increase the number of providers and services in disadvantaged communities. Those goals really encompass both the audit recommendations as well as the council direction that we have received over this past year. We are pleased to share 4 program highlights. First is the new name. We want to honor our partner providers who have operated our neighborhood centers throughout the city. We are no longer the reuse program, but the Neighborhood Centers Partner Program. To meet our aggressive work plan, we are working diligently to fill the 4 positions that were funded in fiscal year 1920 right now, we have a buildings maintenance administrator, which is our first high-level management position that will be focused on department facilities and buildings. That's the first time we've funded a position solely focused on our buildings. The interviews for that position are actually next week, so we're excited to hopefully to get somebody on board by the beginning of the new year. We also had a one-time analyst funded, and that position was just filled last week. So really, we're really starting to ramp up and get our work plan moving. The remaining positions of senior maintenance worker and community coordinator are our next parts of that recruitment. To reiterate again, only the BMA, the building maintenance administrator, was funded ongoing. All the other positions were one-time. With the new analyst position and recently filled, we are able to release the next request for qualifications in March of 2020. This RFQ will be for anyone, existing and new partners, to apply and to provide services in all of our facilities that are on the inventory list. The RFQ also will align with the expiration of the unique services clause, which ends in June 30th. Due to the current and midterm economic conditions, which are fairly favorable, PRNS is not recommending the extension of this provision in the policy.
Okay, and today we have some recommendations before you related to the facilities that will remain on the list, and we just want to remind you in Council Policy 7-12 that governs the Neighborhood Center Partner Program, formerly known as the Reuse Program. The policy states that there are 5 ways in which the director may recommend removal of a facility from the list. So those reasons would be cost of repair is prohibitive, cost of operations is prohibitive, or the use by a city department is advantageous, response to disasters, or that the council determines that it's in the best interest in the city. So those are the reasons. And before you today, we have a recommendation to move 7 facilities, again, that will move off of the formerly known reuse list, and 6 of those are being moved to department operations, and you'll see those first 6 listed there. Really what this does is it formalizes some longstanding operations. We have, as you might be familiar with, Hank Lopez, for instance. That's long been the Youth Intervention Services hub, as well as office space. And some of these facilities we've actually been operating like after-school programs for almost 10 years. So again, these are really formalizing and shifting over to department operations. And then the 7th building, McKinley, we recently did a transfer to Franklin McKinley School District. So this is a property on their land, and due to the expiration of CDBG restrictions, we have done that transfer. So with that, what that does to our total inventory, you'll notice that for some time we said we have 50 total community centers. So prior to any action by council, we've had 50 total community centers, 11 operated by us, 39 were in our partner program. We've since transferred 1 to a school district, which now means that we have 49 remaining in our inventory. And based on the recommendation today, that would move 17 to department operations and leave us with 32 that would be operated by partners. So when we come to council on December 30th, if you approve that action, we would move forward with 32 partner community centers. So moving forward, again, we, as Neil mentioned, we're moving aggressively on our work plan, which includes progress on our audit recommendations. We're looking forward to all of building assessments and thus repair plans. We will continue to align the family-friendly directions that we've received. And we are also working with the housing department to look at facilities that can be moved from strictly a community center to a housing and community center option. And before we release the RFQ, we will be doing a community needs assessment to make sure that we're aligning neighborhood needs around each center, council priorities, as well as the larger needs in our populations, and making sure that we're meeting those needs in the RFQ. And then finally, we do hope to continue to let the community know what our partners are doing in our community centers by moving to an online calendar. And again, that's a part of our work plan. So with that, we ask for you to accept the report.
And we'd actually like to make a change on the date for council. Instead of 12/3, we do recommend to have it heard on 12/10 as well.
I wondered.
And the recommendation is to remove those 7 facilities from the Neighborhood Center Program Partner Facilities list.
I would move approval with the date change to the 10th, and then I have a couple questions.
Go ahead, Councilmember Foley.
Okay. I have a question about the assessment, the community needs assessment that you do. How do you reach out to the community to find out what is most desirable in that community, what they need?
So we're going to have a multi-prong approach. We know there's a lot of existing data out there that relates to everything from the child care master plan that the County Office of Ed has done that shows sort of where there are needs for child care. We also know there's other health assessments that are done. We also know that our partner, our departments, other departments have a lot of data. So we're going to pull together existing data. We also have been doing some mapping of that data so we know where the needs are because they are different throughout the city. And then in addition, we're hoping to use our neighborhood commission as an input for that because as much as I'd like to say we're going to have 32 different neighborhood meetings, I'd like to say that. I'm not sure I can guarantee that at this point. But we do want to make sure that we're using, again, existing data, checking in with our partners, utilizing neighborhood associations as well as neighborhood commission, and then obviously input from your offices would be greatly appreciated.
If I may, we would love to assist you in gathering the information as it relates to all of our districts. I'm sure we'd be happy to help with that. What might be useful is if you could create an easy online survey that we can then include in our newsletters, that we can include as a link for people to participate. Makes it really easy for them to do that. We've been using that tool successfully in my district this year to gauge what's of interest, what are concerns, and how we can resolve issues. And it gets quick results right away. You may only get 5 or 10 people, but at least you're pushing it out a little bit further than you might in the normal process. And we all have newsletters that we're
Yes.
always looking for content and ways to engage our community. So I would offer that as a tool to you. Then what happens to the groups that are leaving? In District 9, it's Paul Moore, no one's leaving, it's a vacant building. I'm glad to see that it will be utilized. But there's other facilities that are current tenants, partners. Do we assist them in relocation? How does that work?
So the remaining 6 that were on the list that we're asking to be removed here, all of those are currently run by Park and Recreation staff, and they have been from the last 2 to 11 years. So this is more of a technical change, and we're asking to remove those facilities since it's already been operated by city staff for many years. So there are no partners inside or no major agency that is running that center. These are all Park and Rec facilities.
So they're not physically relocating?
No.
Okay, that's what I was not understanding. Okay.
Councilmember, if I can add.
Please.
It doesn't preclude us from operating in a hybrid model. We would just be the primary operator, PRNS, the city, but it doesn't preclude us from having a community organization doing programming out of that facility.
Okay, and all of these are programs run by PRNS staff already? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
Great. Councilmember Jimenez.
More coffee.
Thank you, Councilmember Esparza, I appreciate it. I just have a few questions. I know you, Neil, you went over fairly quickly the reason for the change in the name. I think you said you wanted to honor the community partners, which is fine. I'm just curious if you could elaborate a little more as to why the change. And the reason I'm asking is sometimes we get a lot of information about a lot of different programs, and and for me, changing of the name makes me have to switch gears a little bit and rethink. I've always just reuse. It makes sense, it's intuitive, and this is a little different, so.
Yeah, I think part of it was, working with the auditor's office, over the past year on the program, looking for the ability to say, what's next with reuse. I mean, the reuse program has been with us since the, major downturn in the economy. And it was a solution, and a very well received solution to get buildings used. But I think part of that question that the auditors were asking us is, then what's next, right? We're in a different economy. We're looking at issues of different needs in different communities. We want to, again, just make a change and make something positive alongside our efforts as a department with Project Hope, and just as one of the residents came here earlier and said, language matters. And so part of that was the reason that we want to make call the program something that is less administrative and technical, and honoring the nonprofits that we're working with.
Okay, I guess, we're talking about language and stuff, so the thing that it makes me think about is, I've always thought about the reuse program as potentially something that the city, assuming there was enough interest at the council level, and we want to dedicate enough funding for it, that we would maybe start bringing some of these back in-house or having a deeper discussion about that. And I know I've tried to convert the Edenville Community Center to a hybrid and trying to bring more, and there's stuff going on there. It's just, I think it can be utilized a little differently. And so I feel like changing the name and the language, it sort of cements it a little bit more than I would like. It makes me feel like it's a little bit more permanent now, and anyway, so although I know it's not in fact the case, if we so choose to explore that, but anyway, that's the sense that I get as we go through the name change. It just feels a little different now, and
Yeah.
I almost feel a little bad even talking about maybe changing it, because now we're talking about, neighborhood center partner program, right? That sounds a little like I don't want to touch that. That's sensitive. Anyway, so I wanted to express that. I don't know if you have a comment.
Well, I was going to say, it does definitely not preclude the policy as was shown up front, does allow us to bring back centers. A lot of it, I think, for us right now is about ensuring that those centers have sustainable and ongoing funding. So that if there is another downturn that happens quickly, if we remove a center that's off the list, we'd have to go through another, administrative process to get it back out to the agencies. But I think one of the things that we'll be looking at throughout the year, alongside the community assessment program, is kind of re-looking at how our funding is, put out across all centers. The conversation on equity, is going through all of our discussions in the department, and part of it will be about, as the RFQ comes out, what are those community centers that are in the communities of highest need, and what is the best service model for them?
Right.
That could lead into answers of it's a nonprofit, or could it be city operations?
Right.
And we
Okay.
want to bring forward that type of assessment.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I had was around, I think on page 2 in the memo, and I think Councilmember Foley touched on this, where it talked about the $1.25 million for the assessment and maintenance of facilities. I don't know, Councilmember Foley asked the question in a particular way that maybe got me to question my thinking around it, because I'm wondering if I understood it correctly. The assessment and maintenance is the assessment of the facilities, right? Not necessarily the services provided, but just the
Correct.
condition of the buildings
Right.
and things of that. Okay,
Correct.
all right. And I guess the question I had is, so $1.25 million, is that only to the Parks Department? That's to the Parks and Rec Department, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And if I can add, it does include, at least temporarily, the staff to help with the outreach around the services. So the bulk of the money you're talking about is identifying maintenance needs, fixing things, bringing them up to standard, for example, a preschool standard or something like that, so that it can be used for that purpose if it can't currently. And this whole other thing around connecting to the community around what do you really want here? All of that is funded from the money we got this year.
Okay, I understand. And so one of the, again, going back to language matters, so if you follow that sentence where it mentions $1.25 million for the assessment maintenance, it goes on, think the following sentence talks about, senior maintenance worker to strengthen its ability to assess and care for city-owned assets. That seems overly broad, and so what I'm concerned about is, just with that language, is that that money is going to be strictly to look at the reuse sites, right? Not at every other facility the Parks Department has, Kelly Park, and what I would hate to have happen is that it get diluted because we're using it to look at other facilities and not necessarily at the partner.
Yeah, the 1 million funding is specifically for the reuse buildings.
Okay.
The ongoing effort that we have for the building management administrator, we do expect that position, because it is a high-level manager, to look at all of our buildings, which includes reuse centers plus our hub facilities. As you know, majority of our, we're going to keep calling them reuse for a while, buildings are our oldest buildings, right, in the inventory. But even our newest hubs are, going on 10 to 15 years old, which their physical life expectancy is starting to go downward too. So, there's a very large infrastructure maintenance backlog, right, with our buildings. This investment that the council has provided for us and the department will help us really look at our buildings, make sure that we can take care of them for the next few years.
So then I should assume then, if, say, for example, the Southside Senior Community Center, one of the oldest community centers in the city, that one would be looked at to evaluate sort of the condition of it and as part of all this work?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Okay, thank you. The other question I had is just to understand what was said about some of the 6 neighborhood center facilities that are recommended for department-led operations. So for example, just as an example, because it's listed number 1, the Almaden Youth Center, the Rock After School Program. So just so I understood, Andrea, is that's been going on, it's just a matter of just
Yes.
formally changing it?
Correct.
Okay, all right, okay.
These top 6 have been going on for 10, 5, and Park Ranger training, like about 2 years.
Okay, so they were, just so I understand, this was been going on, but it was still considered a reuse site?
Yes.
So now we're just changing the name and acknowledging that it's actually within the purview of what the city's operating?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I think those are all the questions I had. Thank you for the report. I think this is, appreciate it coming back and touching it every so often. I think it's important work, and look forward to seeing how it progresses. Thank you.
Councilmember Carrasco.
You got it right.
I did. It was the only one.
It was the only one that was left in the roster. Thank you. Just a couple of things, and I don't want to belabor the conversation too much, but under page, one of them.
It's not helpful.
I swear I'm not eating her cough drops. The Joseph George, what is that? What is that? That's new to me.
So there's a portable, it's the Joseph George Recreation Center at
Okay.
the corner of the campus in Alum Rock School District, and it's been as the memo says, it's been a after-school STEM program that we
Okay.
did. We partner with the Alum Rock Education Foundation, now the Alliance for Youth Achievement.
Yeah.
And given that it's solidly an after-school program, we're looking to discuss that with Alum Rock School District. in
And it's
terms of
been
transfer.
on the Joseph George campus?
Yes.
Oh, so they've been controlling it the whole time in providing the after-school programs?
Well, we have, the provider that we're in contract with is the Alliance for Youth Achievement, and then they have, Dr. George Castro is the longtime provider there. And he's retired, and there's somebody new doing the STEM program there. But given the fact that it was, again, sort of the life of that building, and the restrictions on that building are looking, that they have expired, we're looking to engage the conversation with Alum Rock as to whether it should really be a building managed by them versus a building managed by us.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, does make sense. So my biggest question, and it always comes up for me, and if I don't ask it, I'll get in trouble by everybody that lives in Alum Rock.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Alum Rock Youth Center.
Yes. You got it, ding, ding, ding. The Alum Rock Youth Center. And I was there a couple of days ago. We had the ribbon cutting for the STEM the brand-new computer center that was proudly gifted to us by Google. So the Alum Rock Youth Center is now a hybrid model, correct?
It has been for quite some time.
Yeah. And so, so it was filled, there was a lot of children, there was a lot of activity, there's been a lot of activity. But as you know, Andrea, you were a part of that. And Angel, you were a part of the creation of even why the youth center is there. It was in between a junior high and a high school in a gang hotspot. And this was, for those that were not with the city at the time, it was a grassroots effort. It was the community coming together, and of course, the city also doing an assessment, right, an analysis. And this was where there was a great deal of services sorely lacking for our youth. And of course, we knew that there were predators preying on our kids, and it was ripe for the taking. Junior high and a high school. And so we needed something for them to have a haven where they could go and be safe. And so this is how Alum Rock Youth Center was birthed. And so it was a very proud moment for the community and a very proud place for our families and our youth to go to. And so when a lot of the community centers had to be, I don't want to say shelved, but had to go into some sort of an alternate universe, you know, Alum Rock was one of them. In my opinion, I don't think that they should have been cut across the board. I think there should have been an equity lens, and Alum Rock should have been left intact. But it is what it is, and now we're here where we are. But have we started to think about what we're going to do with Alum Rock and the future of it? And it's still very active, and I'm glad that the Boys and Girls Club is there because, as we know, the Boys and Girls Club is magic wherever they are. But nonetheless, I must ask the question because the residents ask it of me continuously. And the reason why I also ask it is because have you thought of what we can do to expand services to the older children? And I'm talking about those kids that we should still be serving. And I'm not talking about the little ones who are served by the Boys and Girls Club. I'm talking about the ones that should be served, who are older, who are still very vulnerable to those predators who are still lurking around. Because I went through that youth center room that's right behind like the bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
teen
talking
center?
about? No, in the youth center.
Okay.
So it's the one room where city staff is.
Right.
We really need to look at that room and how we're really going to maximize it, but we need to really look at that room.
Okay.
Yeah. I need you all to go in there and really look at that room. Please. And so I will take the rest of my conversation offline, and if you want, we can, I can take my answers offline as well. But I'm going to put that bug in your ear because as the budget is coming around just a few months from now and how we're going to plan this out, I need us to really look at that room or how we're going to expand our services to the rest of that youth center, given that that was the mission of that youth center, and given that those predators don't take a break. They don't care if it's a recession. They don't care if we're doing really well in the city. You know this, right? And so we must figure out what we're going to do. The little ones are very well taken care of. There's very vigilant eyes on them. But I'm very concerned about some things that I saw there. Yeah.
We will follow up.
Yeah, thank you.
I do have a comment about when you have the, excuse me, when you have the RFP, and after you finish with the community assessment, I want to know how, you talked a bit about the service model, especially under equity. And for me, for District 8, we have Evergreen Community Center, deep into the Evergreen neighborhood where most of the folks on the other side of Capitol Expressway don't make their way down there to use it. And so I know one of the ways that you decided which community center, or not you particularly, but the department decided which ones to close and which ones to keep open was a financial reason, right? Which ones are the ones that are most viable, which ones are the ones that are making the most money, and those are the ones that are continuing to function now. So I know that Evergreen Community Center produces a lot of classes and produces a lot of revenue. It is not the biggest community center for sure. And so I would like for you to also consider square footage in that, because even if you put our Evergreen Community Center, the small little Meadow Fair, I don't even you can call it community center, is a community room, and the Welch Community Room, because it's also tiny, we couldn't get anywhere near what like maybe Seven Trees has, or what is it, the Camden Community Center or Bascom Community Center. And so I also would like for you to consider some of those factors into which ones, if you have a next round of community centers, which ones are going to be included and which ones, and to consider a bit of the square footage, because I think there's some inequities there. When we take a look at where our neediest communities are, those are the smallest community centers. And I, before the meeting, I was speaking with Angel about, I recognize that Evergreen Community Center brings in a lot of revenue. And couldn't we also consider a model where if that community center in your district is, which in every district is making a lot of money, those are the ones that we chose because those are the ones that were more viable, more financially stable. Couldn't the revenue from that main community center then fund other community centers that could be on their, under the, getting off of the partner program list, like the ones that you're proposing today, the 7 that you're proposing today? Because I know one of the reasons why you're taking some of these off is because they're viable, or they have an ongoing funding source. So I'd like for us to consider some kind of model that helps some of those districts like mine that have some community centers within. The Millbrook Community Center is really not a community center. It's under really a reuse facility with the school district, right? It's a school district facility, not really a City of San Jose facility. But I understand it's so consistent that you would take this off, and I completely agree. But as you're moving forward and towards the RFP, I'd like for us to consider something a little different so we can bring a little more equity to some of our districts.
If I can respond for a second, Councilmember. Next month, we began a conversation starting with this committee and then ultimately the larger council around access to our programs, and cost being a barrier, but certainly looking at square footage and how that's distributed around the city in terms of access for people is part of the larger equity conversation. But just next month, we're going to get deeper into this very conversation that you're bringing up.
I'm glad you are, because the centers that are open right now for our teens on the other side of the Capitol Expressway, and where I think there's most need, is at Eastridge and then it's at Welch, and they're both being funded by my own budget requests. So if I discontinue those budget requests, which I won't, but they're susceptible, right? And they're absolutely needed. So I'm glad you're having this conversation. I'd love to find out or give me an update of what that ends up looking like. My last question was, and I think you touched on this, Andrea, but it was the online model, the scheduling. Yeah, that was, because I had submitted a memo and that was approved. I think most of the items are either in progress or completed, and that's the only one I think I didn't have an update on.
Yeah, we're going to start with a pilot with Vietnamese American Cultural Center, and then from there, see as to whether, we're actually really waiting for IT and some of our website transitions to be completed to see if that's something we can do a portal within our own, city website, or if we would need to use something like a Google Calendar. So we're still assessing, but we really do think this is a high priority, so we want to pilot something with the ACC to kick it off in the new year.
So you said you're waiting for IT?
Well, we want to look at whether we have, again, if we're going to be doing this at over 30 centers, right? What is something that we can, is there something that we can do that's linked to our own website, because we already have facility pages? Or is it just better to use something like Google Calendar? So we're assessing, again, whether we're going to do an in-house kind of portal or something that's like a cloud. Again, I keep saying Google because that's what we're probably going to pilot test. And then see how we're going to do this long-term for all of our facilities.
So you're just working with IT, which is, and you're trying to figure out with this pilot with the Vietnamese Cultural Center, whether that's going to be some kind of portal or just simply a Google Doc or Google
I think
Calendar.
our pilot will be with a Google Calendar as we're sort of assessing what we can do internally. But we're going to go out with a Google Calendar at the ACC most likely, but we're going to demo it before John and Neil first.
Yeah, we'll scale it after we work out the bugs at VACC, but one of the things Andrea was alluding to that I think you're aware of is right now our citywide website is frozen, kind of. So working on it in this month is just not possible. So there's some delay in testing out concepts on whatever this new website ultimately is going to be and what it's going to be capable of doing. You know, this month they're trying to work out the bugs on that first. So then hopefully we get to something, in an ideal world, where it's just to the facility page, it's embedded in there somehow that's simple for people to use, but we really can't test those things until they're done with the overall web page.
Got it. And I'm guessing that once you figure this piece out, that we would all, in our respective council web pages, would have some sort of access or ability to break it down by district or exclusive to our district. I don't know how that would filter out, but I'm guessing that there is that kind of capacity to do that.
We will put that on our list of things to test. Yes.
Wonderful. All righty. Well, thank you so much for the presentation and for the proposal to remove these 7 or these 6 from the reuse facility, but now to the Neighborhood Center Partner Program.
It'll grow on you.
Yeah, I know. Okay, do I have a motion?
Yes. I made a motion.
Did you?
Early, yes.
What the heck?
Yeah, she did. That's right. And I second.
No, she didn't. All right, all those in favor? Oh, yeah, that's right. We started out the conversation that way. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so this moves forward. Thank you so much for your work that you're doing. And next, we will have the last one. This is a capital project. This is the Community Facilities Development Capital Improvement Program, and this is our status report. So welcome, Nicole. Welcome back.
Thank you, and I'm sorry to leave you to this, but I make some changes. So, thanks for having me back. I am Nicole Burnham, the Deputy Director of Capital Programs for the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services. And with me, I have Eve Zudi, who is Division Manager. Oh, there we go. Eve Zudi, Division Manager in our capital program as well. So this is an annual report out that we provide each year on the status of our capital program, our revenues, our expenses, and I'm going to walk you through that. Just a friendly reminder, this is a look back at fiscal year 18-19. So things that were budgeted for this current fiscal year that we're in, you may not see a lot of talk of them in here. So just an overview of the program itself. We have a fairly large program. and an extremely complex one in terms of the number of projects that we're running and evaluating and working through at any given time. There's about 150 of them going on across the city. And our funding sources are Park Trust Fund, Construction and Conveyance Tax, grant programs, and we still have some Measure P bond funding floating around. So we're going to talk through each of those and also give you a quick update on flood projects. So first up is Park Trust Fund. And so this is the fund that is whose revenue comes from residential development in the city, the often discussed residential development fees. As you can see, they fluctuate quite a bit from year to year. So fee collection in 16-17 was 13.5 million. In 18-19, it was 16.6. We had a nice big year in the middle there, but it fluctuates a lot based on development cycle and what's happening in the city. There is interest being accrued each year on revenue as it sits until it gets spent. And we try to allocate this money into projects and spend it as quickly as we can. And as you can see in this current year, we encumbered about $17 million worth of funding. So there is a backup report on this in attachment A of your report. There is required annual reporting on this topic that goes up on the city website, and that's in accordance with the California Mitigation Fee Act that we do that reporting. So, and just a quick snapshot of some of the types of things we fund with this. So Payne Avenue Park is a brand new park that we will be building out in Council District 1. It was a brand new acquisition for us. So these funds go to acquisition of new property, rehabilitation of existing parks, construction of new parks. So there's a broad portfolio of projects that it goes into. So Payne Avenue is one of them on the right-hand side, and then North San Pedro and the Bassett Avenue parks are actually downtown, north of the North San Pedro market area, again, funded by those residential development fees. Another funding source that we have, construction and conveyance tax. This tends to run about $20 million a year in new money. 20 to 25 is about where it usually lands. The number that shows up here at 68.3 includes carryover from previous fiscal years of projects that are continuing to be worked off. So we have a lot of projects that, we often talk to you about projects in one-year cycles, but in truth, they often take multiple years for us to deliver. So we end up with carryover each year. I'm actually going to skip ahead into Measure P for a moment. And come back to grant applications. So Measure P, as you know, was passed in 2000 and was a Parks Bond initiative. We have generally worked most of that off. We have two outstanding projects, Arcadia Softball Complex, which we expect to have beneficial use of shortly. It's in its final inspection and checklist phases. And then Council took action in October on using the remaining Measure P funding to do soccer at Columbus Park, which we are very excited about. So attachment B of your report is the audit report. So annually, the auditor does audit that program. And Parks and Recreation Commission now serves as the bond oversight committee for that bond program. So we will report to them in December with that annual bond report. One item, a series of projects discussed in your memorandum are the flood projects. You might recall in February 2018, for those of you who were on council at that time, we came to council, daylighted and documented all of the flood recovery projects that we had from February 2017 flood, and highlighted and received appropriations for all of those projects to move forward. At this point, they continue to move forward. Attachment C of your memorandum is a list of those projects and their current status. Generally speaking, a lot of them are done or very close to completion. We continue to work with our insurance carrier, AIG, to secure insurance payout where we can on the facilities that were eligible. We continue to work with FEMA and Cal OES to secure reimbursement for as much as possible. The projects that remain that have not been initiated at this point generally are the big, hairy ones, right? Japanese Friendship Garden, the tea house, was a complex project for a variety of reasons, mostly because the heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems were impacted by floods. So we had to bring in some specialty contractors to help us with that redesign. And the pump house remains, again, and it's a complex water treatment system and life support system for our koi So it takes some careful thought and planning. But so that's another project-related element that is funded partly out of our capital program and partly from out of commercial paper, right? That we're managing and working through as part of our program. So I'm going to back up into grant applications. So each year we do seek to supplement our funding and the funding that we have in our program through grant applications where we can. We seek grant applications that match projects that need to be done rather than trying to create projects that match a grant program. So here's just a documentation in fiscal year 18-19 of the grant programs that we applied for and the status of them. You can see we got 2 really nice grants from the county for all-inclusive playgrounds. We're actively working on those projects. They're moving forward in design. We are awaiting award on 2 grants for our trail program, which Eve will touch on in a moment. And we lost out on a number of potential grants, but we continue to keep trying for those projects that are priority for us. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eve, who's going to talk about an upcoming grant program, and then also talk about the trail program.
Thank you, Nicole. Eve Zudi, Division Manager with Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services. There's a number of grants that we would look at, and one of the new ones that's coming our way is called Measure B. It was voted by Santa Clara Valley voters in 2016, and it was in the courts for a while, but that money is now on its way. We're waiting for some final documentation from the VTA. At first glance, it's a 30-year grant program that has allocated $250 million towards pedestrian and bicycle improvement. So it sounds like a large number, and it is, but over 30 years, the city's expecting about $3.3 million a year, which would be shared between Parks and Rec and Department of Transportation. We collectively are building a bike web where DOT is building Class 4 bikeways, so the projects like you see on Santa Clara Street, where there's really well-defined routes for cyclists, would be something they'd build across the city, and those are quite expensive projects. And then trails would also look at a share of that money. So the way the VTA has set up the system is that they're looking for agencies to apply to get onto a 10-year list. And what happens is, once you're on that list, it says that's your project that's pre-cleared so that you can then apply for the funds when you're ready to move forward with the project. So we needed to do some early prioritization to think about what were the best projects to put forward on this list. A big issue for the VTA as part of this measure, it's transportation oriented. So we had to look at our trails that had good linkage to transit, a good mix of residential and commercial uses, and could really help build out a transportation system as well as a recreational trail system. So there's 5 projects we're putting on this list through those initial applications. The first is Los Gatos Creek Trail. This is an undercrossing beneath the Caltrain railroad tracks near the Diridon station. And we've been working on this project for years. We're working towards 90% construction documents now. So this puts us in a good place to get some money to build this thing. We expect that project to be about $5 million. So this would be a small share of the funding we need, but we'd look at combining that with other resources. This project really aligns well because it leads us into the Diridon station area. The Guadalupe River Trail, we're looking at it in 2 ways. One is we want to fill that big 5-mile gap from downtown to South San Jose. We've master planned that project from Virginia Street to Chenoweth Avenue and include the California Environmental Clearance document. So that's in good shape. And then we want to pick up 5 ramp structures that we've studied and planned for along the lower Guadalupe. So you can not only ride on that trail to get to work, but you can find convenient ramps to get down to Cisco and Cadence and Maxim and all those companies as well. So that project would go in at about a $47 million request, and this far exceeds what we see in Measure B, but it puts us in a position where we can look at other resources and pull Measure B to help us fill those gaps. This trail connects to light rail stations along the entire alignment. Coyote Creek Trail from Tasman Drive to William Street, we've fully master planned that trail system, completed California and federal environmental documentation, and we've got development happening in patches along that trail system. That project would be $33.8 million, and it connects us to BART. Thompson Creek Trail in the Evergreen area has a completed master plan and current California environmental documents. We've opened the trail from Tully Road to Quimby. We've completed our plans from Quimby to Aborn, and we want to build out to the county line, so about 5 more miles of trails. So we'd be looking at a project that connects the East Ridge Transit Center and residential uses throughout the area. And then the Five Wounds Trail is not yet planned, but it's been on the work plan for a long time, and it's a fantastic project in that it connects potentially to 2 BART stations and connects to the Coyote Creek Trail at 2 points, and so we want to put some time and effort into that as well. And then for trails, I'm going to run through some numbers quickly. We're at 61.61 miles as of the end of that fiscal year. We delivered in fiscal year 18-19 1.7 miles of trails, which included the Three Creeks Trail in Willow Glen, the Coleman Road undercrossing along the Guadalupe River, and Penitentiary Creek Trail from King Road to BART. And you're probably saying, well, why haven't we hiked that one yet? And that's because we're waiting to open Penitentiary as the BART station opens up, because as it serves right now, it's really a dead end to a station, and so we want to avoid problems there. We won an award from the International Trail Symposium for planning and design work on the Three Creeks Trail, and hope to do the same on trails in your districts. On the 2 grants that we have pending, we had a very good conversation with Coastal Conservancy staff yesterday. They feel very certain that we'll be looking at an $83,000 grant to do some planning and study work on the Five Wounds Trail, and a $140,000 grant to continue design work on the Coyote Creek Trail Singleton Crossing, which currently goes in the channel and blocks passage of steelhead trout. So we're trying to get a bridge built out there. Trail Count 2019 occurred outside of this fiscal year, but the data is good, so I'll share it. We had 7 count stations. If we annualize the usage on the Guadalupe River Trail, we're almost at 1 million people a year. We're at 935,000 people according to the Rails Trails Conservancy calculator. We saw only slight changes in traffic volume at 4 of the count stations, so we're staying pretty constant. We saw a 12% increase at the Los Gatos Creek Trail near Hamilton Avenue. We saw 6% more people in Willow Glen on the Three Creeks Trail, and we had a big drop of 36% in downtown on the Guadalupe River Trail, but that's because we changed the approach to how we counted. We got more accuracy this year, so that's affected our numbers, but we'll be better in future years now that we count consistently. If we ask trail users, what's your impression of San Jose trails, 25% say great, and 44% said good. I won't tell you what the rest said, but we've got some work to do. And then we asked people about what are the impacts that prevent them from using trails frequently. There was a large number of people who picked our predetermined questions, which were around landscaping, maintenance, that type of thing. But then 52% decided to pick other, and they mentioned predominantly social issues, the concern about the unhoused along the trails, lack of connectivity in building out the entire network, the general operations, which was in terms of upkeep, just keeping lines of sight clear, and then the users themselves. There's always a conflict between a slow walker and a fast biker, so that was always a concern. We asked people, if we were to do something along the trail network, what would it be? Here's my final 8 points for you. People said they would really like to see rapid cleanup of storm events along the lower Guadalupe, where it floods every year after rains. They'd like to see regular patrols, so they see rangers and people keeping an eye out for them in the trails. They'd like to see programming, so 5K, 10K runs. They want to see trails as a social venue. Regular abatement to keep encampments from popping up. Complete the trail network. They want to see rules and the regular enforcement of those rules. They want to see policing in terms of San Jose Police Department staff out there on the trail network, and more regular maintenance. And that comes up, usually in the spring when we see a lot of flat tires is a majority of the complaint, but just regular upkeep, repairing cracks, potholes, that type of thing. So that's the update on trails.
So with that, we will wrap it up. Our request is that you accept the annual report on the Park Impact Ordinance and Parkland Dedication Ordinance Fee Report for fiscal year 18-19, and accept our annual status report on the Capital Improvement Program and our trail program.
So moved.
Thank you. Questions? Sandy? I just have one question, and that's about the park maintenance for the Coleman sale. I know that it wasn't wasn't, I don't think it was complete in the memo. I think it only talked about the 4.7 million. But if you can give me a quick update of what's been happening in terms of the funds for park maintenance. But before you do that, let me have Larry Ames come up for public comment.
So that's exciting news about the trails. I'm looking forward to using those new ones when they get built. Very glad for that. I'm here to comment on the PDO-PIO funds. It does make sense to have these funds, to have the new developments pay for the infrastructure that they need, including the nearby city parks. I'm wondering if you could get funds out of the businesses too. I mean, people use them at lunchtime and for volleyball and team running things, so maybe they could help contribute to the parks. So a couple of problems with the PDO-PIO. The waivers, part of it is you're giving waivers for in high-rise and affordable housing, and that results in not enough money to build parks. And then that in turn involves overcrowding for local parks, which make people become not in my backyard. So it's important to fund the parks at appropriate levels. The funding is not geographically evenly distributed. A lot of developments are going some areas, but the other areas are very stable and there's no development there, so you get no parks. And the third problem is the economic cycles. I think you noted that there. You have booms and busts, which make it hard for you guys to keep the park planners, because how do you keep them funded during the lean years? So I'm just hoping that you can look for some other funding too to help supplement that and get some stable funding. Maybe a parcel tax or something like that. Don't use it on the stormwater though. Make sure you're using it for the parks itself. So that was my suggestion here. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. So Nicole, you were going to go over some of what the Coleman proceeds has gotten funded and going to get completed.
No, happy to talk about it. Thank you for the question. And the memo does address that first 4.7, right? Because that happened during the fiscal year. And the only reason the last 20, which we got thanks to your efforts and the efforts of your fellow council members, is because it came in this fiscal year. So we'll report more robustly on it in next year. But meanwhile, I can give you some snippets, right? So
Thank you.
a couple things that were funded. One was turf replacement at Powell. We were going to convert the soccer field from grass to artificial turf. So the team is working on that with Public Works. They have the scoping set and are working on executing a service order. We had similar improvements proposed at Ramick, and that's in a similar state, right? Scoping is done, and they're starting to move forward with design. There was a series of playground renovations spread throughout the city, so the work plan is in place for those. So those are going to get built with in-house resources. So that work plan you're going to see roll out over a couple-year period, as it takes a good couple of months for them to replace a playground. So we're designing in series, and then they will get built in series. So but generally speaking, they're all moving forward. With the Vietnamese American Cultural Center, the VACC playground is high on the list. There were some existing projects in front of it. For example, Groesbeck was already funded. It's not funded out of this, but it was funded out of previously. That's ahead of it on the list, and then Mayfair. And then we'll be moving into Vietnamese VACC and then Solari, which was part of the first $4.7 million funding. You talked earlier with Neil and Andrea and their team about the $1 million for use improvements. So those are in process, and we're in the process of evaluating those. The funding for Happy Hollow exhibit improvements is in development. Those projects are in design as we speak. There's a FUSA exhibit in design and improvements to the Jaguar exhibit as well. There's a series of funding for signage and wayfinding on Guadalupe River Trail, which we're working through. That one's lagging a little bit. I would say we haven't been as aggressive in that one. And then there was a bucket of funding that came into Powell Master Planning was one of them, one project that was specifically funded. So we've started kind of dabbling in that, but it probably won't start in a robust way until the spring. And there was other funding that was given into the park maintenance teams for pest management, strike team. So all of that funding is continuing to just support day-to-day operations of the park maintenance team.
All across the city?
All across the city, yes.
Wonderful. And so regards to some of the parks, How did those get chosen? I know there was a rating, and the reason I ask is, you know, we have, in my district, some of, I know in other districts, they have low-rated parks, but I know I have Welch, Meadowfair, and Bogini, I think it's, those are the three that are mostly, the lowest rated in my district. How did you choose some of these projects?
Well, Welch actually received funding in that first 4.7. So
The
there was
200,000?
200,000 that went into that. There was funding already available, and we put 200,000 into that. So that's going into the dog park and the improvements there that the community asked for. And Bogini was one that was on our list and funded, that actually was funded as part of the regular 1920. So this current fiscal year, that is a playground that was funded through the regular capital improvement process. And the third one you asked about was?
Meadowfair.
Meadowfair also was funded through through the 1920 fiscal year. So it wasn't funded out of Coleman, it was funded out of district construction and conveyance.
For the master plan?
For the master plan, as well as playground improvements. So 2 funded projects there for you at Meadowfair.
Thank you. Is that how you, and is that, I'm just asking about my particular 3, my specific 3, but is that what you looked at? Did you look at the lowest rated parks to?
What we looked at for the playground, so you might recall last year, I think when we talked about capital budget, we had, and we talked about it when we talked about deferred maintenance infrastructure backlog. We had gone through an exercise of mapping and evaluating and documenting the age of all of our playgrounds across the city. So when we went into capital budget programming, we looked at what the oldest playgrounds were and their worst condition. So it wasn't necessarily tied to the park, it was very specifically tied to the playground.
Great, thank you for answering that. Alrighty, so let us move forward. Do you have a motion? Ay, ay, ay. I can't wait till this meeting is over. Alrighty, well, I'm glad to see that all of our conversation is moving forward. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Wonderful, so that moves forward, thank you so much. And that concludes our, oh yeah. Do I have any comments for our open forum? I don't have any cards. It doesn't look like it, okay. So that concludes our meeting, thank you.